right, let's go ahead and get this thing started, shall we? Welcome everybody to the August edition of Unwrapping Chocolatey. One of the most requested things that we get when we send out our survey after these webinars and asking you folks what you would like to see us do, without fail, is always stuff around packaging. You guys really want to understand how packaging works, ways to get better, etc. So today we're going to talk about package types uh, and all the various things that you can do inside of a Chocolatey package, whether that's running an installer, using a zip archive file, just running PowerShell, all these different kinds of things that you can do inside of a Chocolatey package. We're going to walk you through that content today. Uh, I'm a familiar face. My name's Steven. I host these things every month. And this month I'm joined by one of my support engineers, Ryan. So, Ryan, go ahead and introduce yourself and say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan Richter, senior support engineer here at Chocolatey. Been doing this stuff for around 5 years, so I've seen a thing or two, know a thing or two, and hopefully we can teach you a thing or two today.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Ryan. So let's dive right into it, shall we? The first thing that we're going to look at today is the arguably the most popular package type that folks are familiar with Chocolatey with, right? And that is working with installers. So I'm going to share my screen and pull up my VS Code window here, and we're going to dive right into the installers folder. So inside of here, we've got two types of packages. We've got a package called embedded, and all these folders in here are named after the package ID that I've created, and they're named this way to kind of keep everything in line, and easy to follow, easy to understand while we go through this. So embedded packages means that the installer is included as part of the package. So if we drill in here a little bit further and we go to the tools folder of this embedded package, we'll notice that not only do we have all of our Chocolatey scripts for install, uninstall, and before modify, which is upgrade, we also have a couple of installers in here. We've got a 32-bit version and a 64-bit version of the VLC setup installer. And if we look at the code, like what is actually happening, how do we get this thing to actually install inside of a Chocolatey package? This is what we can do. So we'll open up our Chocolatey install script, and there's really not that much in here. We are defining a couple of variables, and then we're using this PowerShell trick called splatting to pass all of the parameters that we need to pass to one of our Chocolatey helper functions, in this case, the install Chocolatey install package, and we're done. We don't have to do anything else. If all you're looking to do inside of a Chocolatey package is install a piece of software from an installer, you're going to use one helper function and provide that helper function with all the information you need. In this particular case, the information you need is the installer or installers, depending. If you only have a 32-bit version of an installer or a 64-bit version of installer, you can supply those, just one. But if you have both, you can supply both, like we're doing here. And Chocolatey will do the heavy lifting for you to determine which installer is the correct one to use on the system that you're installing that particular package. So in this case, we've defined a couple of variables here. We've got the file location for the 32-bit installer and the file location for the 64-bit installer, and we've kind of named them appropriately, right? We've got this file location 64, and we've done the same thing down here once we look inside of this hash table for the checksums as well. So we've got the 32-bit checksum for the 32-bit installer, and we've got that checksum for the 64-bit installer as well. Both of those are in here. Once you've got the installer, we need to run the installer with silent arguments because that's kind of the whole point and beauty behind Chocolatey is that you are able rather to install software silently behind the scenes. Nobody sees any pop-up windows. You don't bother anybody, etc. So you need those silent arguments. Once you have those few pieces of information, you've got everything you need to make this chocolatey package work. A couple of things to go through here, just for awareness purposes. Software name. This is what what displays and programs and features once the software is installed. So in this case, it's technically VLC Media Player is what shows up in programs and features. Um, but to demonstrate that you can wildcard this, I've used star at the end. That way it'll just wildcard and fill in the rest for you. That software name is used by Chocolatey to take a snapshot of the registry after you've installed the piece of software. That way our auto uninstall feature works. And we'll dive into the other scripts here, and we'll notice that the uninstall script for this particular package is empty. It's got nothing at all in it. And in fact, we don't even need to include it. Because this is a very simple package, and all we're doing is invoking an installer and installing VLC in this case, Chocolatey's automatically going to know when you run Choco uninstall how to remove that piece of software, how to run the uninstall procedure for that piece of software. You don't have to write any code for it. It's just going to know. Where the uninstall script gets important is in cases where Chocolatey will be unable to determine what the silent installation procedure is automatically, or if it's a really complex install. Maybe you've done some extra work inside of that install script. So if we open this install script again, and I'll flip back and forth, um, the way Chocolatey works and the way this whole thing kind of glues together is the piece of software that you care about is going to be installed right here on line 24. This is where all the magic is going to happen. So if you need things to be done prior to that piece of software being installed, just write the PowerShell code to do that stuff before you call this install chocolate the install package thing. Similarly, if you need to do something after the installation is completed, put that code after the call to install chocolate the install package. So anytime you're doing those kind of things inside of an install script, you will typically want to have your uninstall script do the inverse of that action, right? So if during your install, maybe you set some registry keys or some firewall rules, the inverse of that would be to unset or to remove those registry keys or remove that firewall rule. You won't have to, maybe you don't necessarily need to have your uninstall script uninstall the software. Chocolatey will handle that for you. But if you've made any additional changes, such as firewall rules or registry changes or whatever the case may be, you want to do the inverse in your install script or your uninstall script, rather. I'm sorry. Same kind of thing applies to the before modify script. Again, it's not needed in this particular case, but it could be for your use case. Before modify scripts run they're primarily used for upgrades. Like that's where most people think to use these things, but they do run other places as well. It will run before an uninstall. Um, in addition, so taking the upgrade piece into account, let's just talk about that for a second. When you're upgrading a piece of software, you might have some sort of data on the system that needs to be backed up prior to upgrading. Maybe you've got a config file that you know the installer is going to overwrite as part of the process. So you take the existing configuration file for the currently installed version and you back that up. Maybe you just make a copy of it in your before modify.ps1. And then inside of your install script, after you've called the install chocolatey install package, you use copy item or whatever method you use to back that file up, restore that configuration file, um, wherever it needs to go. That way, the new version of the software is properly configured after the fact. That's the I would say the most common use case for an upgrade script, this chocolatey before modify script, and kind of the same rules apply when you uninstall stuff. Maybe when you uninstall stuff, you need to back some things up prior or whatever the case may be. Whatever you need to do, that before modify script's going to run both at upgrade and uninstall. So that's kind of embedded packages. Um, and in an organizational context, we really recommend that you use embedded packages wherever possible. Have that binary, that installer inside of the package so you've got an ultra reliable source of truth when that chocolate package is being invoked. The chocolatey package doesn't have to go anywhere else to find anything. It's not got to worry about a web server being online or a file share being available or whatever the case may be because it's got everything it needs inside of itself. It's a really, really super reliable way to build your packages. Now, there are some use cases where it's just not possible, right? Like maybe, or maybe you just don't want to, right? Maybe you're like, I'm willing to take the risk. We'll do it all remote. It's totally fine. And for reasons we won't get into, that's how a lot of the chocolatey community repository packages are built. They don't have the binaries inside of them, but rather they point to the official download locations where the installer lives. So in the case of like Google Chrome, the Google Chrome package goes out and downloads the Google Chrome installer from Google at runtime. So that's what we're going to do here with this package. It's a remote package. Uh, just to demonstrate how that all glues together, instead of file locations, I'm using URLs. And in my example, I'm going out to 7zip.org and pulling the installers from there, both the 32-bit and the 64-bit versions. And guys, it's pretty much the same package args deal inside of here. The main difference is instead of file location, we're using URLs, and the package name or the function name is different as well. You'll notice that this is just install chocolatey package rather than install chocolatey install package. One is meant for embedded installers, and the other is meant for remote installers. So as long as you get that distinction, you're going to be fine, and you'll know which one to use. Um, One thing I didn't mention prior is the file type thing. So just to quickly touch on that file type, set to MSI, EXE, or MSU. That just instructs Chocolatey on the back end to do the right thing. In the case of an MSI, like we've got here with the 7-zip installers, we will automatically run MSI exec /I, whatever the name of the MSI file is for you. The only thing that you need to worry about providing as part of the script is the actual arguments that you want to pass to the installer. In this case, these are pretty bog standard silent arguments for an MSI, quiet and restart LV for the log file. You might encounter installers where, or MSI installers that have additional properties that you can pass, maybe a license key or a server to connect to or a database connection string or whatever the case may be. Um, Provide those in the silent arguments as well, but you don't need to worry about providing MSI exec /I, whatever the MSI is, by setting the file type to MSI and either having the file location set correctly in the case of an embedded package, or having the URLs set correctly in the case of a remote package. We will do the right thing to get the installer and then invoke it correctly on your behalf. So that's kind of installers quick and dirty in a nutshell. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. Ryan's going to talk about, I believe, zip packages for a few minutes. So take it away, Ryan.
Alrighty. I'll let you go ahead and stop your share there so I can
Yep, I'm
share it out.
there. We go.
Beautiful. Alrighty. So we've got a couple zip package examples here. Kind of building on exactly what Steven said earlier. We're going to have an embedded and a remote kind of example for these types of packages. We'll start with our embedded one here. In this case, we're going to use the monospace or monospace, however you choose to say it. It's just a font package that you can find currently on our community repository. Um, with that, the function that we're going to mainly use for our embedded zips is going to be the get chocolatey unzip function. And with that, you've actually got a lot less that you need to pass compared to installers, believe it or not. So really, you just need your package name. Chocolate's smart enough, you can actually just pass an environment variable for that. It'll know what you're working with. You got to tell it where your zip file is. In this case, we've got it located in our tools directory of the package. We're going to tell it where the destination is to unzip those files. And then obviously our checksum and the type of checksum we're using. Lastly, within this package, we do a couple other things. Mainly, we're going to go ahead and register a, let's see here, we're going to make a registry edit to enable this font for all your users. Kind of like Steven was talking about earlier, some of the things you can do with an uninstall script, which this package does have, is we go ahead and change out and kind of tidy up after ourselves with that registry key in this package example. But if you want to use an embedded zip file inside of your package bundled in, get chocolatey unzip is going to be that function for you. For our remote example, we're actually going to use the same exact package to try and make this a little easier to follow. So the code's pretty much exactly the same. Our function for a remote zip is going to be install chocolatey zip package. Again, your package arguments are going to be pretty much the same. Your package name, we're going to give it our upstream URL to go ahead and get the zip that we're looking to work with, that unzip location, and again, your checksums. The big thing with the checksums is that's a big security thing inside of Chocolatey. One of the big things, if you're looking to kind of use community assets or something that you're kind of borrowing from somebody else, is in our packaging format. We really appreciate if you put in this license text file to go ahead and list out the licensing for whatever software you're working with, as well as a quick verification. Usually it's just a matter of telling us, hey, how did you run get file hash in PowerShell to check those checksums of your files. The next thing that we kind of want to go over here, my personal favorite package type is actually meta packages. These are super simple and super powerful for an organization. With them, we don't actually need any scripts at all. A meta package at the heart of it is really just a package that will call the install of other packages that you're needing. So inside of here, we have our new spec. I recommend anybody that's looking to get started with packaging at all. Built into our template. We have a nice link off to Microsoft's documentation for how to do versioning inside of Chocolatey packages, aka NuGet packages as well. They kind of use the same standard currently. So inside of this, we kind of set up a scenario where we're going to use this package to maybe set up a developer's machine, and they need some specific developer tools. So in this case, I would call my developer tools package, and what that will do is it will go through and install all of these dependencies that I've defined. So in this case, we're going to install current PowerShell core, the PS Windows Update module, VS Code, the PowerShell extension for VS Code, and Python inside of it. One big thing to note inside of this too that we've kind of gotten through the support channels here at Chocolatey is with Chocolatey version 2, you're likely running NuGet v3 feeds. And sadly, gone are the days where you can just put in your ID into your new spec and Chocolatey will kind of grab the latest package. You have to input an inclusive range inside of your new spec files for packages these days. So again, kind of looking at those docs, we can say, hey, if this PowerShell core example, we're going to grab a version somewhere between major version 7 and up to major version 8 in this example. These are really helpful tools, again, to kind of help a lot of organizations make that one chocolatey call to do a lot of operations as opposed to having to do multiple things and kind of explicitly kind of put everything out there. inside of it. You can do one whack command and then bam, you've got 20 packages installed potentially. Then lastly, the last kind of example that I've got here will be portable packages. And portable packages, again, are pretty simple, nice, low code option for creating packages. Mainly in this example, we're going to use the GitHub CLI. A lot of common examples on this are going to be like Putty because it doesn't come with a full fat installer. A lot of the use case for packages like this, or you might want to use them inside of containers and make them really lightweight and things like that. You don't want to install a full application. You just want to have it there to invoke it with runtime. The shimgen operation inside of Chocolatey will actually put the installer on the path. So quite literally, all you need is a new spec to define where your executable is inside of your package. In this case, you would end up putting your GitHub executable inside of the tools folder. That's all covered in the to do of the package. And then Chocolate's smart enough to know how to engage that. And then bam, you've run that executable. It's as simple as that inside of it. One last kind of nice trick with this package that we're using as well inside of the new spec is we're actually using this $ version dollar to when you pack the actual package itself, you can pass the version along and it will fill out that part of your new spec when you go to compile the actual chocolatey package inside of it. And that's all the examples that I've got. I know Stevie, you whipped up a fun little script example to show people.
I did. I did. Let me grab my share screen button again. There we go. Beautiful. All right. Let me pull up that script-based example. So we've talked a lot about Chocolatey helper functions and how simple it can be to, say, invoke an installer, either an embedded installer or a remote installer. Same thing with zip files, whether they are embedded zips, you've included them with the package, or a remote zip. But Chocolatey doesn't have to do anything but run PowerShell code either. So you could, in fact, make a Chocolatey package that's versioned that just maybe sets some registry keys or sets some firewall rules or drop some files onto the system. In the case of my script here, I'm not doing anything but setting a couple of values inside of my registry. So at this HKLM or HK local machine software chocolatey path inside of my registry, I'm going to create a new scripty demo key. And inside of that key, I'm going to put a couple of string values. So I'm going to write the package name, which is scripty. I'm so clever, I know. The install date, and we'll use some PowerShell to get the date into the correct string format. The version, and then also installed by Chocolatey. And then just to give some feedback to the end user at runtime, maybe you're doing this in PowerShell interactively. We use write host to put all that information onto the screen. This also is going to end up in the Chocolatey log as well. So if you're doing it in an automated fashion, you're using CI/CD pipeline or a configuration manager to do this stuff, those write hosts are going to end up in the Chocolatey log. It's probably one thing to be a little bit careful of as you're emitting data. You don't want to emit sensitive data inside of your PowerShell script. So be a little bit careful with your write hosts and what you're telling people inside of the logs because we're very chatty. We put a lot of stuff into the logs. Um, so don't accidentally throw a secret or anything in there that you don't want to show up in the logs. That would be not very fun. And again, the same rules apply because this is a script-based package and we're interacting with the machine. In this case, we're setting registry keys. In my uninstall, I'm just doing the inverse. I'm ripping all those registry keys out. In my before modify script that would run before upgrades or uninstalls of this particular package, maybe I want to snap a backup of that registry key. You never know. Um, in your packages where you are interacting with the registry and you are making changes, it's a really good idea, particularly in the case of upgrades, to take a quick backup of the registry key that you're going to be messing with. Just create a reg.back file or something, or a .reg file of some fashion, right? There's all kinds of ways that you can back up the registry. Um, do that work so that if your install goes sideways for whatever reason, right? Computers are nothing more than thinking sand, and sometimes they think the wrong thing. So stuff goes wrong. If it does go wrong, Chocolatey can revert that change, right? So you could have a like a try catch or something like that that says, "Hey, try to do this registry key thing. If it fails, take that backup that I made in my before modify script and reapply it to the registry. Put it back to the way it was and then throw an error, right? To fail the package to be like, "Hey, something bad happened, but it's all good. I put everything back to the way it was before I started messing with things." So, um, chocolate is really, really powerful. You can do a ton of stuff with it, and it can be as useful as you're willing to make it. Really lean into the fact that you can run these before modify scripts, these uninstall scripts, to do this different kind of work. You can include other PowerShell scripts as well. Um, if you had maybe a whole bunch of functions or something like that that you wanted to use inside of your package, you could have like a helpers.ps1 file that included all that extra code, and you just dot source it where you need it and your install, your uninstall, and your before modified scripts. Not to let the cat out of the bag too early, but that is in fact what we're going to talk about next month in September's webinar. We're going to talk about Chocolatey extension packages, which are effectively that. They're just PowerShell modules that you can install onto the system as chocolatey packages and then use them inside of your packaging code. So we're going to go through like the poor man's extension, which is using the helpers.ps1 file inside of a package, and then walk you all the way through creating really complex extensions as well. That one's going to be a lot of fun. But I'm going to shut up for a second, and I am going to check and see if we have anything in the Q&A section that needs answered. So we've got a couple of things that have been answered, and then we've got one that James has marked to answer live, and then Kevin Lee has his hand up. Kevin, if you could ask your question in the Q&A so that we can see it, we'll make sure that we get that answered. And we've just got another question in. So I'm going to take this question from Georgios first, and I'm going to go ahead and just answer that one live. So we've got no private versions. For example, Firefox releases version 142.0 today. In 2 days, version 142.0.1, and after that, 142.1. I would like to have one package that gets the latest one without manual intervention. Um, in the resources that come out after this webinar ends, we will include a link to a spotlight video that one of our infrastructure engineers, Josh King, did, where he walked you through automating what we're talking about today. So you can absolutely automate this stuff so that every day the package itself like is checking to see if there's a new version of, say, Firefox in this example, that will allow you to kind of set it and forget it and just set up some CI/CD pipelines to allow you to um, always keep the packages that you're building at the latest versions. We don't recommend that you have a chocolatey package that's version 1.0 and then it just always grabs the latest version of whatever software is out there. Um, if you're going to manage software using Chocolatey, you should very tightly couple the version of software that's being managed by the version of the Chocolatey package on the system. That way, there's no drift, there's no questions. Like, if you were to inspect the Chocolatey data and do like a Choco list to see all the packages that are installed, you know intrinsically because you're mapping that software version to that Chocolatey package that, oh, this Firefox package is at version 142.0.1. That means I've currently got Firefox version 142.0.1. And then if you upgrade the package to 142.1, for example, um, then you would have that upgrade path to 142. You don't really want to um, go away from that. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You could have a package that just always points at the latest release of a thing and works. That's fine, but we really don't recommend that you do that. Let's see, we've got, can an MST be included in the command argument parsed to the MSI? It absolutely can. It absolutely can. There's an example of this on the Chocolatey Community repository. If you look at the Adobe Reader package, the Adobe Reader package on the Chocolatey Community repository uses a transform file as part of its install process. So you can use that as an example of how to build a transform into your packaging code. But absolutely, yes. Anything that you can do on the command line in PowerShell or in a PowerShell script in general, you can do inside of a Chocolatey package. So if part of that is providing a transform file to an installer, absolutely, totally do that. And the Adobe Reader package is a good one to do that with. The last question that we've got hold up here is from Brian Mitchell. It says, if the installer is being pulled from the web at install time as a latest package, how can the checksum be known? Um, this goes back to my point about tightly coupling the version of a Chocolatey package to the version of the software that you're trying to install. Um, Google Chrome is probably the best example of this that I can think of from the Chocolatey community repository standpoint. Because we get questions sometime where the user of Chocolatey goes, "Hey, I'm trying to install Google Chrome, but it's saying I've got a checksum mismatch, but I've deployed the latest version." In 99% of cases, that means Google Chrome has released a new version of their browser, and their download links only point to the latest version. So the Chocolatey package being tied to a specific version is looking for whatever the previous version was, and our automation just hasn't picked up and published a new version of the package yet. There's a couple hour window in there where this could potentially happen to the open source community, guys, or if you're using open source Chocolatey and like proxying the community repository or something like that. You will get that where you might have a checksum mismatch, and then Chocolatey will fail. It won't work because if the checksum doesn't match what we're expecting, we don't know if that's malicious or not. So we're going to by default throw and tell you that the package just failed. We'll give you the reason that, hey, there was a checksum mismatch, but um, we won't let that installation continue. Now, you can, if you know what you're doing and know the risks and you know that it's okay, pass the ignore checksums command line option when you're installing to allow that to continue. But highly, highly, highly not recommended to do that. If it's failing, it's probably failing for a good reason. So if you're automating package updates and you are expecting it to work and it doesn't because of a checksum mismatch, check your automation because something might be wrong. In the case of the Chocolate Community Repository, somebody might have released a new version of something, and if it's an automated package, the CI just probably hasn't run yet and picked it up. Um, I hope that's helpful. I hope that answers that question, Brian. I know that's kind of a long-winded way around it, but I kind of wanted to again drive the point home that a chocolatey package for a specific version of software should be packaged up to a specific chocolatey package. You don't want to, just have a blanket 1.0 of Firefox and it just pull the latest version all the time because how are you going to audit that, right? Like if you're going to use Chocolatey as a package manager to track and manage your software over time, help yourself out by versioning things correctly and having a one-to-one relationship of Chocolatey package version to software version. Um, One thing we haven't touched on yet, Ryan, and I know we're coming up to the end of time, is how you can mix and match these things, right? We've talked about a lot of different package types today. We've talked about installers and zip files and portable packages and meta packages, and Chocolatey is super flexible and the world is your oyster and you can use all of those things together if you want to, right? Like you can create a large package, for example, where maybe you've got an installer or a piece of media that's huge. Say it's you're trying to package AutoCAD and install it with Chocolatey. You're going to have a bad time embedding AutoCAD into a package. It's just not going to work. That there's a 2 gig limit where things start to get flaky with chocolatey packages. So if you've got an installer that's big over 2 gigs, put that installer somewhere and have chocolatey downloaded at runtime and then invoke it. And to keep things small or smaller for Chocolatey to download, if you can put it in a zip file and download that at runtime, do that. So you can mix and match the install Chocolatey zip package helper function, which will go get that installation media and extract it to wherever you tell it to extract it to, and then you can use the install Chocolatey install package helper function to, based off the path where you just extracted that installer to, invoke that installer with the correct silent argument. So there's nothing to say that you can't mix and match helper functions inside of your Chocolatey packages as well, or that you have maybe an a meta package that's, hey, I want to set up this tool, right? So you've got a Chocolatey package that downloads a zip file and extracts it somewhere, and you've got a chocolatey package that actually picks up where you've extracted that installer and performs the installation, and you've got another chocolatey package that does the configuration. So you've got a meta package of dependencies for each individual step so that you can, maybe in some cases you don't want to run the installer, you just want to stage it on a system. So you do that. You've got that single chocolatey package that you can run as well. Or maybe you've staged that for later and now you can go ahead and install it at some point in the future. You've got the chocolatey package that does that because you've staged it properly. And maybe you've staged it, you've installed it, and you've configured it even, but 2 months from now the configuration needs to change. Well, that configuration package is a versioned artifact that you can change the configuration to what it needs to be, increment the version, and then Choco upgrade that package everywhere else. You don't have to mess with the meta package. You can kind of control things individually once a meta package has been installed. So um, you can glue this stuff together really, really well. Really, again, the world is your oyster. The stuff is up to your imagination to do with it what you want to do. It's super, super cool. Um, Brian, do you have any final thoughts? We're about 4 minutes from close at the end of this webinar. If there's any other questions that anybody has, use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen and ask those questions there, and we'll be sure to answer them.
No, just to echo part of what you're saying. I mean, quite literally, the Chocolatey tooling has the flexibility of the PowerShell engine. So if you need to do something on a Windows platform, it has baked in the tooling to make that change or run that artifact or install, whatever you need to. ISOs, zips, installers, portables, everything under the sun. Windows updates if you really need it.
Yeah. So one thing I failed to mention, a couple minutes ago, we were talking about Google Chrome and package versions and how sometimes the Google Chrome package will get updated because the installer will become out of date because Google Chrome releases a new version and we haven't picked it up yet. Chocolatey for Business has a CDN. So if you are a Chocolatey for Business customer, we have a CDN available that will make it possible for you to install older versions of Google Chrome. You can't do that inside of Chocolatey open source because even if you say, "Hey, Choco, install Google Chrome version, previous version," we'll give you the latest version of Google Chrome because that's what the URL in the package points to. But via our CDN, we're able to cache that installer, that version, and then serve that file up to you if you need a specific version of uh, a package. We're picking on Google Chrome, so we'll say if you need a specific version of Google Chrome, the CDN for business customers is there, and that's there to allow you to internalize those older versions as well if you need to, so that you can host them on your own repository internally, which is ultimately what we want to get everybody doing, even if you're an organization using or open source Chocolatey. Don't rely on us directly. Either set up a proxy repository and point to us upstream, or build your own packages and host them internally for the software that you care about. Or talk to us about Chocolatey for Business so you can have Package Builder and Package Internalizer, two tools that make it super quick to build packages and then enable you to make fully offline uh, Chocolatey packages out of any of the 10,000 plus Chocolatey packages that we have on the community repository, which you can automate all that stuff too, to really save you a ton of time. Um, Will the meeting be available for review later on? Yeah, so this is going to land here in like a week or two on our YouTube channel. So if you go to youtube.com/chocolatey software, there is an Unwrapping Chocolatey playlist where this will eventually land. You'll get an email since you registered for the webinar today and you attended the webinar today. Attendees will get an email with that artifact once it's ready to go. Um, so if there are no other questions, we are coming up to the end here. Couple of quick housekeeping items. At the end of the webinar, when you leave, your web browser is going to open up and it's going to open up to a survey. And that survey is really quick and it's really simple and it's extremely helpful for us. That survey says, what do you want to see us cover on these webinars? I use that information to build the content for these month after month. Without fail, packaging is always a super common thing, but I'm starting to run out of ideas of what kind of packaging stuff we can do. So, if you can think of anything else that you would like us to cover on the webinar here, please, please, please take 30 seconds, fill out that survey, and let us know. We'll be glad to cover it in the future. Um, I think that's it. I think I covered all my bases. Did I forget anything, Ryan? I think we're good.
I think we're good.
Awesome. Well, again, everybody who's on the webinar here today, thank you for joining us. I have a lot of fun doing this stuff. I don't know about you, Ryan, but this is one of the highlights of my month being able to put these webinars together. So thank you to everybody who's coming or who came today. Look out for an email from us after the fact with a bunch of resources. All of the code and everything you saw today is in a GitHub repository. You're going to get a link to that. You're going to get a link to some additional resources. We've got a bunch of like walkthrough tutorials for creating packages. So you're going to get a link to that out on our doc site. And then we've got a couple of links to some other helpful stuff. Like I mentioned, that video from Josh where he walked you through automating package creation and stuff like that. So tons of resources coming after the fact for this one. Thank you guys again so much for joining us. And I just saw a question pop up in the chat. I'm going to answer it and then we're going to end this thing. The question is, do we have any link or article which shares Windows patching through Chocolatey? To that, I will say, stay tuned. We don't have anything currently, but I'm not letting any secrets out of the bag. Stay tuned. We
Coming
might
soon.
have we might have something for that in the future. Um, yeah, but nothing currently. So, all right, with that, folks, I will bid you all a adieu and have a good rest of your Thursday wherever you are, and we will see you at the next one. Take care.